Everyone in my family lives in the same house. Now, I don't mean like the same physical house, like some big multi-generational living setup. No, almost every member of my family, direct and extended, lives in houses that are identical to each other. Large, Victorian, and kind of creepy if you're not used to it. When someone dies, the family gets another family member to live in that house instead. Now, there are a few outliers, but honestly, they tend to be younger members of the family who will, one day, wind up living in one of these houses anyways. I listened to a radio show once, where people talked about the funniest things they misunderstood as kids. One person thought that Nielsen families were all families with the name Nielsen, and they got to grade TV shows because they represented some sort of perfect cross-section of America. Well, I thought everyone's families all lived in houses that looked exactly alike. Now, this wasn't totally unfounded. I grew up in a small town, and the only friend of mine who had family that lived near him lived in a subdivision where all the houses were identical, so it made sense. Now, setting aside my childhood misconceptions, the houses each had very specific rules. Again, this was something I accepted as a child, though I now recognize how strange it was. When we visited my Aunt Megan's house, for instance, we had to wear 2 watches each. She insisted on it and would check us each before coming into the house to ensure that we had both working and synchronized. We were never allowed inside my Uncle Frank's house. We would meet him outside, play in the yard, and go to the bathroom in a porta-potty he rented before our visits. From time to time, I would swear that I saw people wearing dark robes standing in the windows, watching us play in the yard. Anyways, our house was fairly normal, as these things went anyways. However, there were 2 doors on the upper level that had many locks on them. I never once saw them opened. My cousins, though, lived in the strictest of the houses. No one was ever allowed to walk around alone. You always had to be with a buddy, and you could never be out of sight of another person. Once, my sister wandered off alone and said she saw me playing upstairs and almost followed until I realized she was gone and called her from downstairs. Told her to come back. My grandparents, though, lived in a house where the windows were always closed. Every window throughout the house had a blackout shade and a heavy curtain around it. We were forbidden to touch them. Now, my sister and cousins would all try to peek out from time to time and were harshly scolded. But it never bothered me. The weird rules were just something I lived with. Now, this is probably why my grandmother asked me to watch the house when she went away. My grandfather had passed a few years before, and one day she got a letter that a cousin somewhere overseas was ill, and she announced that she would be going there and would be gone for the summer. She chose me to check on the house once a day, feeding the cats and ensuring nothing had gone wrong. She told me that I had always listened to the rules and was the only logical choice. I was the honey child. A weird phrase, to be sure. I didn't mind. It was school break, my girlfriend was on vacation, and the money my grandmother was paying me for the trouble was enough that I didn't even have to get a job, and I could take a few extra classes online instead. Now, the first few days were fine. I went in, checked all the bathrooms for water leaks, fed the cats, and left. A few days later, while walking upstairs, I passed a window and could hear the faint sound of voices through it. Now, see, my grandmother lives on a remote and large piece of land, so hearing someone meant that they were trespassing. Without even thinking, I moved the curtains and pulled up the blinds. The world outside was not ours. Instead of my grandmother's yard, I was looking at a futuristic-looking city where people moved about on contraptions I had only ever seen in fake movies. I was entranced, watching people dart back and forth on contraptions straight out of a science fiction movie. For a minute, I forgot that what I was looking at was literally impossible. I quickly moved to another window and opened the shades. Here I saw a dark beast floating just beyond the window. It looked like some sort of mutant bat with giant leathery wings and one unblinking yellow eye. Another window showed a burning hellscape as far as the eye could see. In the distance, I watched the outlines of giant beasts move through pools of fire. My head spinning, I went running to the front door and outside, ready for whatever insane world awaited me. Instead, I saw my car, in my grandmother's yard, and the trees that ring the property in the distance. Everything was fine. Whatever I saw beyond the windows did not affect the world that I lived in. Now, over the next few days, I started to catalog all the worlds I saw. There were 32 windows, including one that appeared to just show our world. Some were frightening, like the fire world, or the world full of people as far as the eye could see, with completely white eyes, just standing, staring at the window. Others appeared desolate, like the ice world, or one that was heavily forested, but where I never saw a single living creature. Not even a bird. Others appeared to be fairly normal, like ours, just slightly different. One seemed to contain just a single entity. The bat creature. Though the bat often appeared as other things, from a child to a kitten, to a fantastical looking bird with 4 sets of wings and 3 heads. Now, every time I left the house, I carefully covered each window before locking up, careful to ensure nothing was out of place. Now, that lasted until Gary and his girlfriend broke up. I was about to leave my grandmother's when he called drunk, sobbing about her leaving him. What terrified me was that he was driving around. But after talking to him for a minute, I realized that he was just down the road, so I told him to meet me there and to sleep it off. I couldn't have him potentially killing someone in that condition. Gary was a mess, so I got him into one of the bedrooms and went downstairs to find water and some Advil to take for what I was sure was going to be a very rough night. All the way down the hall, I could hear him crying about Amy. I was filling up a glass of water when I heard him scream and the lights in the house all went out. I stumbled upstairs with the flashlight on my phone to see Gary on the floor in front of an open window. "What happened?" I shouted. "It was Amy. She was outside trying to climb in the windows. She was going to fall," he sobbed. I slammed the window shut, but the bat creature that normally lurked just beyond it was now gone. "Where did it go?" I demanded. Gary shook his head. "What was that thing? That wasn't Amy." He started crying again. I left him there and ran downstairs to find the front door now open and the beast gone into the night. My grandmother is gone for another few weeks, and I don't have a way to reach her, but that thing is out there somewhere. I hear noises in the night now, giant wings flapping outside. 2 children have disappeared from their yards without anyone seeing a thing. That window was closed for a reason.